There's nothing more powerful than the odor of mendacity.
Michael Cohen decided not to hire Robert Costello, and today anyone could see why. For once, the worst criminal defense lawyer in the room was not one employed by Donald Trump. I have not seen a worse criminal defense lawyer than Robert Costello, or a stupider one. Based on just what we saw him do on the witness stand today in court, Trump criminal defense lawyer Emil Bovee did the questioning. Assistant District Attorney Susan Hoffinger did the objecting to Attorney Bovee's questions. Almost all of the district attorney's objections were sustained instantly by Judge Merchan, who makes very quick decisions about objections. But because Robert Costello answered questions even quicker than that, his answers frequently were entered in the record just as the objection was being raised.
Phil Holloway, former assistant district attorney, is going to join our conversation, Jonathan. You know, the minute Jonathan started talking about, like, behavior in the courtroom, all I could think of was Fonnie Willis. And that day she came in, furrowed brow, sweat dripping down, and dress all over the place. And she's upset. And we think she's been sequestered and shouldn't have been watching what was going on with Nathan Wade in that case. Her lover, who had to remove himself from the Trump case. But I just think of that day and her huffing and puffing on the stand and all the antics. And I think, is the law being applied equally here? Is what we're seeing in the trial in New York with Trump being applied equally with when you have somebody maybe you like on the stand, like a prosecutor?
Well, Harriet, it's being applied equally with respect to Trump because they're all going all in to get Trump every chance they get, whether they have a valid legal claim or not. But it's not being applied evenly across the board to all defendants and all American citizens. And what we have seen, especially in the last couple of days in this courtroom in Manhattan, is a reprehensible display of bias. And I'm not referring to Michael Cohen here. I'm referring to Judge Merchan, who apparently is running a modern day star chamber. His behavior in court was particularly with respect to Costello. I think is just abhorrent. It doesn't make sense to me as an attorney how we can have a judge who's supposed to be calling balls and strikes, but who has their thumb so much on the scale. In fact, he's standing on the scale, tipping it in favor of Alvin Bragg. You can compare and contrast the judge's ridiculous behavior in court regarding Costello. Compare that with what we saw earlier in the trial, where we heard everything that you didn't want to hear about latex from Stormy Daniels.
Whew, okay, that was a lot. I'd forgotten how just, like, stormy it actually got. I can hear, and Jonathan is outside the courthouse, I can hear people chanting and shouting. Can you tell us what's going on? Because it's loud.
It is loud, and it's gotten a little bit ugly at moments. There's been some confrontations between protesters. The police, the NYPD, has done a really magnificent job. They're trying to keep everyone calm. I think they've been very reasonable with everyone. As the former president says, this place is a bit locked down. It's a very high level of security, but they're trying to allow people to protest and to exercise their free speech. But yes, it's getting very loud, and at some points you're not too sure if it's going to just stay verbal.
Yeah, well, from what New York has seen on college campuses, I would understand that concern. And by the way, Jonathan Turley just turned into a national news correspondent for just a second to tell us what was going on.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much. I appreciate you being in focus. And I'll pull you back when things get going.
Well, I hate to break it to MSNBC and both of their viewers, but I'm right. And they're wrong. You know, by the way, welcome back Inside the Law. I'm your host, Philip Holloway. And today we're going to start out talking about a little bit about the Trump trial. There was a question that someone posed to me on Twitter, or X, as we call it lately. What can be done about Judge Merchan? And and I'm going to get into that. And then we're going to talk in a little bit about Fani Willis and the recent primary election here in Georgia. So the idea is that a judge is supposed to be a neutral arbiter, someone who just calls balls and strikes and has no particular bias either for or against either side, right? That's how the criminal justice system is supposed to work. Here inside the law, what we do is we examine the real justice system as it really is in real life, and we do so through the lens of cases that are in the news. And of course, what's in the news right now, among other things, is the big case against former President Trump taking place in New York as we speak, right? So I'm sure there's some lawyers here who are watching. We have over 400 people watching live. Welcome to all of you. I'm sure we probably have a lawyer or two in here. If my suspicions are correct, and I think they are, we even have a prosecutor or two. And I think there may be at least one judge who I know that watches and listens here inside the law. And so those people, I'm sure, have been in the situation where they're in a courtroom and they're having a trial, and they got a judge that's sustaining an objection before the objection is really made, right? And when the other side says, they stand up and they're going to make an objection, and the judge just goes sustained before the words come out of their mouth. The way it's supposed to work is the party who's lodging the objection is supposed to stand up, say objection, and then they're supposed to state what we call a legal basis for that objection. In other words, if the objection is that the testimony calls for hearsay, you say, objection, judge, it's hearsay. And the judge maybe agrees or doesn't, or says, okay, what part of it's hearsay? The judge may have a question. And then the other side ideally gets to respond and say, no, judge, it's not hearsay. It's an exception to the hearsay rule, or it's by definition, it's not hearsay, or whatever. There's got to be some legal basis for the objection, but we've all been there. And in the real world, it doesn't always work that way. The judge, theoretically, the judge can make his or her own objections. And so maybe the judge is thinking about the question and, okay, it calls, it's objectionable for some reason, maybe in the judge's mind, but, not necessarily what the other party is going to say. But it's really, really annoying when a judge doesn't even require the other side to say why it's objectionable, and then not give you the opportunity to respond to it. That's the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to let each side weigh in on these things. But in the real world, those of us who've tried cases, we've been there. We've been in situations where the judge obviously has some particular bias and is not holding the other side's feet to the fire, sustaining objections before they even get fully made. And so that's in the MSNBC clip that we started with. That's, you notice at the end, they were basically, I guess the point he was making was, well, the judge was sustaining the objection, so therefore it must have been clearly objectionable. No, that's not how it works. The judge is sustaining the objections because he hates the witness for personal reasons. And he also is very much, in my view, standing on the tip the scales in favor of the prosecution. And it's not fair. It's just an unfair way of conducting business. And we've seen other examples with this judge as well. So back to the question, and this is, let me see where here on X, this is what I posted earlier today. At one point, the judge even cleared the courtroom the other day. He told all the media to get out while he apparently had a screaming hissy fit where he went berserk on Costello, who we've talked about just the other day. But Alan Dershowitz is calling the judge a tyrant, ripping the judge for his outrageous rulings. Dershowitz says he's never seen a spectacle like this, and he's 100% correct. Merchon, just like I posted on X, is outrageous. And so the last thing I said in this tweet was, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And so that's generated some questions. People started texting me and and so part of what I wanted to talk about with you guys today regarding this is I want to explain what I mean when I say there's nothing anyone can do about it. When a judge is behaving this way, there creates issues such as there's appellate issues. There are, if a person gets convicted, all of these things can be raised on appeal. I remember one trial where I was actually a co-counsel, and my co-counsel on my side, there was an issue and the judge was acting very similar to the way Merchan was here. And the lawyer said, let the record reflect that the judge is standing at her seat. She's risen to her feet. Her face is beet red, and you can see the veins bulging from her forehead or something like that, because the lawyer was wanting to make a record for appeal that the judge was visibly angry and was making an emotional ruling versus a legal one. So can the Court of Appeals do something about it? Yes, the Court of Appeals can. We recently saw in New York, we saw them reverse the Harvey Weinstein case because the judge let in too much irrelevant evidence that was meant only to slime the defendant, much as like what we saw in this case with Stormy Daniels. But the problem is that takes a long time. I mean, how many years has it been, right? 3, 4, 5 years. I haven't done the math. I'm sure you all know how many years it took for Harvey Weinstein's case to get reversed on appeal. Meanwhile, he's sitting in prison. Now, he's got other charges. I understand that. But the point is that you can't put all your eggs in the appeal basket when there's something going on right now that jeopardizes your client's rights, your client's potential freedom, because that's what can happen when you get convicted. You can go to jail, you can go to prison. So that remedy is worth precious little to somebody who is sitting in jail or who is labeled as a convicted felon, maybe on probation. Imagine them ordering Donald Trump to be on probation and report to a probation officer if they don't put him in jail, right? And so waiting on the Court of Appeals to act is not really a valid remedy. Well, is there an ethics complaint you can file? Well, in every state, in every jurisdiction, yes, you can file ethics complaints on lawyers and judges, but there's always some state entity that has the ability to investigate ethics complaints regarding judges. And so if your ethics complaint goes to the appropriate authority in the state of New York, look, I'm filing this ethics complaint against Merchan. He's unfair, and here's why. And you can list a million valid reasons. Well, that's like the Court of Appeal. It's just not going to get any kind of traction in time, assuming you can get a fair shake with your ethics complaint. And I think one of them, more than one's been filed. I heard Congressman Elise Stefanik has filed one, but these are the kinds of things that will not be addressed before the trial is over. So we can rule out the Court of Appeals as being able to do anything about Merchan. We can rule out the ethics complaint in the short term being able to prevail. So the only remedy you've got is the jury. A lawyer friend of mine has said, and I think I agree with him, that the trial jury, the criminal trial jury, is the cradle of American liberty, because that's really the last line of defense that a party has, to this kind of, judicial activism, judicial tyranny. And when you have a judge that's clearly acting well beyond the pale of acceptable judicial behavior, I think it's reprehensible the way that he's comported himself in court. But the trial jury does have the power and the right to, they are what we call the judges of the law and the facts. When they go in the jury room, they can take all that into consideration. If what they've seen is they've seen an unfair judge that's being unfair to a defendant, well, then they can take that into account and potentially find a defendant not guilty. But do you want to put all your eggs in that basket? Particularly when the jury is one that hails from Manhattan, where the defendant in this case got, I think, 12 or 13% of the vote in the last election. It's overwhelmingly sort of an anti-Trump jurisdiction. And so I don't know that I would put, a whole lot of faith in the trial jury, but that's really it. The Court of Appeals technically can do something about this, but not in the nick. They're not going to be able to do anything in time. It certainly won't be quick if they do it at all. Same goes for the ethics investigation, and the jury. It's a flip of the coin. But there's really, other than that, and that's very, very limited. There's literally nothing that can be done about an unfair judge like this. And part of what we talk about here is the good, the bad, the ugly of the justice system. And in my view, that's a piece of the ugly part of it. And the brutal truth is that a trial judge has so much power and authority over his or her little kingdom there, and they know it. And sometimes it goes to their head, and sometimes they behave in ways that are unconscionable. And oftentimes any remedy that's available to the party that suffers for it is it takes too long to come, if it ever comes at all. So if you guys have any ideas, anything that I'm missing, let me talk about it. Let me see it in the chat. By the way, we have 850 people in here now. Welcome to all of you. We're talking here inside the law about what, if anything, probably nothing can be done about Judge Merchan and his behavior in the Trump trial. And we're going to get into a discussion here in just a few minutes about the Fani Willis election update, and maybe some other things if you guys want to talk about it. I looked in the chat before I went live, and there were some good questions, and I thought I would go ahead and try to address some of those. Robin is asking, why are there judges who are appointed and some who are voted in? Well, I'll get to the first question, and then I'll answer the second one. This is really a question of state law. Each state is different, where you have someone that's either elected or appointed. And there's some cases like, okay, we can look at the case here in Georgia involving the Fani Willis and the Trump RICO case. We got Judge McAfee, who did win against my prediction. By the way, I predicted he could very well lose, but he won outright yesterday his election in the nonpartisan primary, and that's it. He's in for 4 more years. Okay, so that's an example. He was elected, but he first took the bench by appointment. There was an opening on the Fulton Superior Court. The governor appointed him to fill an open seat, which is the governor's power to do so. So that's sort of a hybrid situation. But from here on out, he's going to have to win re-election every 4 years. Other places, and I believe in Manhattan, these judges are appointed. Don't hold me to that, but I believe that's what Paul Morrow was telling me when he was in the other day, speaking with us here inside the law. I believe that they are appointed, but in any event, the answer to the question is to why. Well, it's just a decision that each state has to make for itself in their legislature, how they want to, put judges on the bench. The second question is, what are the different types and how do they differ? Well, my goodness, there are judges who preside over simply family court in some states. There are sometimes a state will create a judiciary where they maybe some judges just do criminal, some judges just do traffic. Some judges are, just simply a municipal court judge dealing with traffic citations. We have probate judges that handle cases involving the estate of people that, that pass away. And then there's some states where they give judges sort of the power to do all of those things. And, all judges are not created equal. Here in the state of Georgia, for example, the general trial court is typically the superior court, but some counties have what's called a state court that handles only misdemeanors and no felonies, and they can handle certain types of civil matters. Maybe you got small claims court in some jurisdictions. So there are literally more different types than we can talk about in a reasonable time here, but it's all a question of what the state law is and what the state legislature decides to do when it creates the court. Okay. Did you see the poll in the chat at the early? We did a poll about whether Merchan should color his hair or his eyebrows to to match, and I think it was overwhelming that he should in fact do so. And of course, this was the subject matter that Doug points out what can be done about rogue judges for the reasons that I just went over. Very little, if anything, can be done. By the way, thanks to all of the now 900 and something people in here, Gene has gifted some Inside the Law memberships. Thank you very much for that, Gene. That's how we help me support the channel. By the way, feel free to hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I'm zeroing in very close to 30,000 subscribers. So help me. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Tell your friends and your neighbors to also subscribe so we can get to that 30,000 mark here very soon. And of course, if you want to support the channel, the links are in the show description. I see that those of you in the chat are very active, and I appreciate the comments. I do go back and I try to look at the comments that you make before, or once it goes into post processing. I can go and see the live chat. I'll miss most of it here while we're talking, but if you have a question, make sure you please start by saying question, and then when I look down and I see it, I'll be able to know that it's a question and it's not something where you guys are just chatting with each other. And I'll do my best to answer it either here live, or perhaps if it's a question posted after we are live, I will see it in those comments as well. All right. Now moving on to, that's the deal with the Trump trial. We've got closing arguments next week. At this point, I thought it was going really well for the defense. Now I'm once I've seen how Judge Merchan has behaved, particularly the last few days, I don't hold out a lot of faith that he's going to create an environment where the parties can have a fair sort of opportunity to make an argument to the jury. I think if the jury perhaps is hung, he's going to keep telling them to go back and deliberate. No, go back and deliberate some more, deliberate some more, deliberate some more. And I think he's just going to force them to stay there and deliberate until they come up with what he prefers, which I'm sure is a conviction. But we'll see. Next week, we've got closing arguments, and I'm sure we'll be getting into that more here inside the law. All right. I want to move into a discussion about the election. And we've got here in Fulton County, Georgia, we have had the primary yesterday. And of course, Fani Willis has won her primary. Okay. We already mentioned that Judge McAfee won, but Willis has won the primaries. Now she's not done. She has a Republican challenger. We're going to talk more about Courtney Kramer here in just a minute, but the last night, so the media and social media outrage is that Nathan Wade, according to the media headlines, shocks guests with appearance at Fani Willis election victory party. And as I said here on X, I don't understand why everybody is shocked by this. They're obviously still very, very close. Let's see if we can pull up a picture of Willis.
Ain't nothing more powerful than the odor of mendacity.
Sorry, hit the wrong button, but I love that video. All right, so here you go. This is some from media reports from the victory party last night. We have additional here. We've got you can see Wade there talking to people, and then to his right we can see the looks like Willis and another lady that's a supporter there in attendance. But clearly there was a big celebration. Lots of folks were, of course, very happy. I personally am not shocked about this. I mean, they're obviously still very close. We saw the interview where I guess it was said ABC News, where he brought that up, and he has publicly said that even in his testimony they're still very close. I personally am not shocked by it. Maybe it was a bad look. Maybe she should have asked him politely not to come for political reasons, but by the same token, her supporters clearly love the fact that he was there. So politically, I fully get it. I understand why he was there. But what do you think? Tell me in the comments. What do you think about it? Do you think he should have been there? Should she have? Are you shocked by it? If so, why? And if you disagree with me, I want to hear what you have to say as well. All right. So we've got the general election, of course, coming up in November. Her challenger is a lawyer named Courtney Kramer. And so I've got a video of an interview that she gave this morning, and I'm going to be able to sort of pause it. We can narrate it. We can talk about some of the aspects of this interview. So I thought it was very interesting. I'm going to have Courtney join us here inside the law very, very soon. But for now, let me introduce you to Courtney Kramer.
In all seriousness, my opponent has super PACs already supporting her.
By the way, she's talking about Courtney Kramer having super PACs supporting her because Courtney is the Republican nominee for DA. Do you really think that Fani Willis doesn't have any super PAC money? I mean, she is a darling of the Democrat Party, and let's just say I would not be shocked to learn that that there's a lot of outside leftist Democrat money headed her way, probably from super PACs. But anyway, here we go.
The Republican Party of this country and the state have already supported her. But right here is a grassroots campaign.
The Republican Party supports their nominee. Are you that? See, I'm shocked by that, aren't you? Imagine that. The Republican Party supporting their nominee. It's amazing.
Nobody is supporting me but the people of Fulton County. And so we need you.
Do you think that's true? Nobody is supporting her but the people of Fulton County?
All the way in.
Okay, so that was Fulton County DA Fani Willis, who won her Democratic primary last night. Meantime, Fani had her own donations double over the last 4 months to the tune of about $230,000. This as she benefits politically from trying to take down Donald Trump in court.
That was quite the election day dress. For more on that, let's welcome in the challenger running to unseat Fani Willis, former Trump lawyer Courtney Kramer. Good morning, Courtney.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So I just want to get your reaction to Fani Willis's comments on stage last night.
So I giggled as you guys were playing that because I would love to know where my super PAC money is coming from. If you see my disclosures, that's not true. Every donation is from here in Georgia. To my knowledge, I know everybody personally there. And of course, the local GOP is supporting me. It's a partisan primary. I'm not sure if the local DNC is supporting her, but that's exactly what this race is supposed to be about. It is of course, the local GOP. We have Fulton GOP and the Georgia GOP that did donate and max out to my campaign, and I'm very grateful for that. I think that we have not had a Republican candidate qualify in over 30 years, and Fulton County is sick of that. And I decided to step in, put my name in the hat, and stand up and give Fulton County a choice and a voice here. And once again, I do not have, to my knowledge, any super PACs behind me. At this point, I would love to know where all of her donations are coming from.
Yeah, you're also fighting against the media.
And by the way, if anybody wants to look and see who's donating to who, these candidates, political candidates in Georgia, they have to file campaign disclosures. It's all out there for the public to see, so you can see what the truth of the matter is for yourself. All right, here we go.
National media as well. Rachel Maddow had Fani on as a guest earlier this week. Take a listen.
This level of sustained public attack is not usually the price of entry for doing your job as a district attorney, nor should it be in a country where the rule of law is supposedly the rule. The ability of prosecutors and judges to do their jobs without fear is a fundamental test of our democracy. Whether you like the Georgia criminal case against former President Trump or not, Fani Willis is one of the bellwethers for the rule of law in this country.
The bellwether. Okay, so Rachel Maddow says that Fani Willis is the bellwether for the rule of law in Fulton County. I mean, can you imagine being that dumb and thinking that, a prosecutor who uses a law in such a way to go after a political nemesis, someone that they don't like, when it just blows my mind how these people like Rachel Maddow go on TV or wherever, and they can think that simply because a prosecutor who can indict a ham sandwich if they want. I mean, you heard what Costello said about the grand jury in New York, how he has all kinds of exculpatory material that he gave the prosecutor, and they refused to hand it over to the grand jury. When a prosecutor has that kind of control, the prosecutor can literally do anything they want. And so it's just like Judge Merchan. If the prosecutor has impure motives or corrupt political motives, that doesn't mean that they are, enforcing the rule of law. Okay, Rachel, here we go.
Wow.
Can you, Courtney, give me a read on why somebody like Fanny is popular in a place like Fulton County?
Oh, well, Fulton is primarily a Democratic county. We've known that for years, and that's why the media is saying that I'm probably going to lose in November. But I challenge them to see the results in the polling that are going to come out in the next couple of months, especially with what Bonnie has done the last 3 years. We have seen corruption. We have seen dishonesty. We've seen lying, cheating, all of the things that a DA is not supposed to do. We haven't seen actual criminals being prosecuted for actual crimes in Fulton County. What we've seen is her make a mockery of the legal system and the rule of law. To say she's a beacon for the rule of law is beyond me. She violates the rule of law. And not only that, she thinks she's above the rule of law. That's very clear in her testimony right there as she was on stand. It's very clear in her actions every single day. I mean, how are we supposed to trust
sorry to interrupt you, Courtney. We'll get right back to you. So it occurs to me. So here on the screen, this reminds me of Willis's testimony, right? And the judge, has said that she left the odor of mendacity, which literally means the stank of a lie, if you will. And so we've got a situation where MSNBC is holding this person up to be the beacon of law and order and justice. I remember when she took that stand, and what I like to say is that she took to the witness stand like a wildcat with its tail on fire, because she was just ready to get in that chair so she could call Ashley Merchant a liar. And it's her testimony that the judge says it has the odor of mendacity or untruthfulness. So when you're literally lying to a court, how anybody can say that you're upholding the rule of law is absolutely mind-blowing.
DA who, has taken millions of taxpayer dollars and spent them on herself. We should be having a DA who is a public servant, not one who is there to serve oneself. And that is exactly, what Fannie Willis is doing. She's not there to protect the people of Fulton County. She's there to protect herself.
And you say that it is primarily a Democratic county, but how are the people there in Fulton County really feeling about her after all of this? Because I have friends that live in Fulton County, and they're not too high on Fannie Willis.
No, and even though it's a primarily Democratic county, I keep saying this over and over, and I hope this message gets through, is that this race is not about right versus left. It is about right versus wrong. And what she has done is completely wrong. She cannot justify her actions. She cannot justify the means to her actions right now. Like I said, there's taxpayer dollars being spent on herself every single day. They're not going towards fighting crime, prosecuting criminals. They're not going towards transparency or accountability.
So let's talk about this just for a second. All right. So think about where we are with this appeal. So we've got the situation where now we've got Courtney Kramer versus Fannie Willis, the two ladies you see on your screen, and they are going to be toe to toe come November. Now, one of the issues, and Courtney's right, I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion. It has been, I think, 30 years or something, but it's not a foregone conclusion that the Democrat will win in Fulton County, because a lot of people are upset on the ground in Fulton County about the money, if nothing else, that's being diverted and spent on this RICO case, when we've got home invasions, we've got carjackings, we got there's no gas station that I know of in Fulton County that's safe. You're at risk of being shot anytime you in Atlanta anyway when you fill up your car, because there's so many shootings at gas stations. Violent crime is through the roof. There's a backlog of cases like you wouldn't believe in the court system. The people are literally dying in the Fulton County jail at record rates, people that are stuck in jail because they can't get their case moved. And the people and the voters of Fulton County have not forgotten about this. They are aware of it. And then they look and see, now we got the Court of Appeals is going to have a hearing probably in July or August to determine whether Willis should be disqualified for her behavior and her conduct as prosecutor in the Trump RICO case. And think about how many millions and millions of dollars are being spent. Just in Ashley Merchant, who is the Aaron Brockovich of this whole thing, uncovered, among other things, of course, you know, that Willis is spending tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars, or at least she was, on a media monitoring service. I forget the name of it, but it was a company that was contracted with Fulton County that monitored her media sort of presence. And it coincided almost perfectly with when she launched this indictment. And it's an expenditure of taxpayer dollars to make sure that her personal star rises high enough and fast enough to suit her. And so we've just got example after example after example of money that could be spent in such a better way. All right. So Courtney is not wrong. The people on the ground in Fulton County, regardless of party affiliation, they are not blind to what's going on. And by the way, Willis has pissed off the recording industry in Atlanta with the Young Thug trial. Those of you who haven't seen some of our Young Thug videos, we're going to get back into that. But we've done some discussions on the Young Thug trial, Atlanta rapper Young Thug and Fannie Willis charging him in another giant racketeering case, using the RICO law in a way that it probably was never intended to be used, but is using rap lyrics as alleged evidence of a crime. And so she's angered a lot of folks in sort of that constituency. And so it's not a foregone conclusion that she has the support of everybody in Fulton County. And I think she's vulnerable.
That's not what's happening. And that's not a partisan issue at all. That is a nonpartisan issue. What we should do is we should have a DA who should not be in the public eye, who's not trying to run for higher office. But unfortunately, that's what's going on. And that stems across all party lines. And the issues that I'm running on are, equal in the Democrat and the Republican parties. And I think that you're going to see that as this race unfolds.
All right. So there you have Courtney's response. What do you think about it? By the way, welcome to the 1,000 people that are now in here watching live. If you haven't, please hit the like button and go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done that. I'm getting very close to 30,000. Help me get there. And thank you for being here. And if you want to support the channel, there are links in the description, which will help us bring additional content. All right. So that's Courtney Kramer. We'll have Courtney. She will join us. I've already been talking to her about it. She's going to come in here inside the law. She wants to get to know you guys. She wants to talk with you and let you know what she's all about. And so you can help her get her message out if you're interested in doing that. By way of update, for those of you who have missed it, the Georgia Court of Appeals is going to be, they are ready to receive any appeals briefs filed by any of the defendants who are trying to get Willis removed from the Trump racketeering case based on the allegations of a conflict of interest and also based on allegations of improper misconduct. It's called forensic misconduct, where she's accused of going out in the public sphere, particularly in churches in Fulton County, and speaking, calling the defendants liars, calling their lawyers racist, and things of that nature. And Judge McAfee has ruled that was improper. So one of the things that I think is probably not talked about enough is that forensic misconduct. But in any event, the parties are preparing their appellate briefs to be filed with the Court of Appeals. As soon as we start seeing those, we'll bring them in. I'll talk to you about them. We'll come in here inside the law. We'll go through them and we will dissect those documents. And and read them and talk about them together, answer any questions. But also you're going to have the response briefs by the district attorney's office, seeking, of course, to not have her disqualified. But we're also on the lookout for what we call, well, they're called amicus briefs. That literally means friend of the court, where you have third parties that are not defendants in the case, and obviously not prosecutors, so they're not a party, but they file briefs as an outsider that urge the court to take a certain position. And it's going to take 2 of the 3 judges on the appeals court panel to reverse Judge McAfee. And in the meantime, I've heard that Judge McAfee might be issuing some rulings now that the election's over. I don't know how much authority he has to take any additional action while the case is up on appeal, because obviously if the Court of Appeal says Willis is not supposed to be there, then anything that he does while the case is pending there potentially would be null and void. But we're going to see those briefs. We'll go through them here. I expect oral argument to be live streamed by the Court of Appeals in July, August timeframe. And then after that, I'm looking at possibly 2 or 3 months after that, we should get some ruling. I do think we're going to get a ruling about Willis before the election. And so that was sort of the point that I was getting to in a long-winded way. This ruling from the Court of Appeals, I think, is going to have an impact on the race, because if the voters of Fulton County see that all these millions and millions of dollars have been wasted by Fani Willis, I think that they may very well express their frustration with that at the polls. So if that happens, I think there's a very good chance that the election is absolutely winnable by Courtney Kramer. A lot of people think I'm crazy. You may think I'm crazy. If you do, put it in the comments. I want to read about it. I want to hear what you think. But I don't think that it's a foregone conclusion that Willis, as the Democrat, will win. Obviously, we can't ignore history, but we also can't ignore what's right in front of our face right now, which is this fiasco that's going to be unfolding now at the Court of Appeals. All right. The chat is very, very busy. I want to take a minute and recognize the assistant chat boss, is what we'll call Kiana Shaw. Welcome. She's also a moderator for my friend Dear Woke Christian, who is an excellent streamer in and of himself. So check out his channel if you haven't done that. But thank you for your help as well. And Megan, chat boss Megan is not here today. I think she's unable to make it, but she was responsible for what I think was a really good thumbnail for this video. She's very talented artistically, and I want to acknowledge that and thank her for doing that. All right. That's what I've got for you guys today. And before we leave, I want to just remind you that this is what Fani Willis thinks makes for good testimony in court.
Man, can I get a water or something? I'm so high right now, y'all. I'm about to go to sleep on y'all ass. I ain't gonna tell you no lies.
Yes, you may. We're gonna take a break. Hang in there.
That's a real testimony in a real courtroom in Fulton County. Testimony put up by Fani Willis's office in their racketeering case against Atlanta rapper Young Thug. Thanks so much, guys, for joining me inside the law. We'll see you back here next time.